Okay everyone, in this tutorial I am going to show you how to bring your exported file into the software that's used as a wind tunnel. And it's the same export that I just showed in the last tutorial on how to bring it into the MakerBot. You use the STL exporter. It's the same method. So again, let me just kind of do a quick mass. So we have something to test. Bring that in. And let me actually create that form and finish. And so first I'm actually going to show you. I'm just going to bring in these. So I'm just going to select these so I can isolate just this whole kind of area. I'm going to isolate. So I'm going to do now. I'm going to go to the Add-ins tab, STL exporter. And again, just leave all that as is. You can do, I explained what the categories kind of tab is in the previous video, so I recommend watching that video if you haven't watched that. It's in the beginning that I explained that, so you don't have to go through the whole MakerBot process if you already know it. Again, we're gonna do the site in a second. So if you have the site as a linked model, this is something that you're gonna want to have checked to make sure that a linked model comes, with it as well. I don't have it linked in this. I just left mine as blank, even though I showed you guys how to link. And I'm just gonna hit save, and I'll just say again that this is concept, and I'll save that as an STL. And so that's exported. The program that you need is Autodesk Flow Design. It's kind of a very basic wind tunnel, kind of digital wind tunnel, virtual wind tunnel. If you haven't downloaded it, I show you where to download it in tutorial 8.1. But if you just go to Autodesk and Students and Educators, free software, all products, and then it's Flow Design. So you just download and install that. It's a very basic program. You'll see kind of how basic it is. So this is kind of the main window that you get, and you go to import. These are the types that you can import. So you can see STL is one of them, but also if you're in SketchUp, you can do it as an object file. TWGs, FBXs from like stuff like Rhino, but I believe Rhino export as object files as well. So that's kind of what you have. I have an STL exporter, a file, I should say. So I'm going to open that, and this is basically the wind tunnel. So you can see this is everything that I've just brought in. So that's like the buildings around it. This is the new building that I drew, so that you can see from here, and you can see like how this one's kind of like see-through. Because it's a mass, all masses, or as you may have noticed in these videos that I've done in this tutorial that these come in all see-through. Obviously when you export it, it comes in as a solid. So you can start to do, see the wind for this. To rotate in this, basically you just left click, on the left mouse button, just click down and hold it, and you can rotate. Sometimes this file may come in kind of not orientated correctly, so if you click on orientation button, this allows you to rotate either through the X angle, through the Y angle is like this. Then you can see like you would think the Z angle would be not obviously rotating it normally on the flat plane. You would think it would be like up and down, but obviously it's this way. So like the Y goes like that. So like if your building came in like that, sometimes it does that. I don't know why. But if it ever does come in like that, obviously you'd have to kind of go to this to see. Another thing with this that you're going to need this for, as you can see, so this is the wind. and basically this is the wind and then the direction that it's coming from. Unfortunately, we can't turn this. So what you have to do is you have to turn your building to match the proper direction for the wind. So whatever you guys deem to be the wind direction, for this area, you have to know what kind of direction that is in terms of the relationship to your building, and then turn this so it matches that direction appropriately. I'm just gonna say it's like that for now, and then so you can move this around. Right now you can see that I'm in 2D. So right now, if I go to wind tunnel, so that's meters per second. Let me go to inches, bush. So you can see here, this was under the simulation tab. I can switch the model to inch, display to inches, just so it shows all this stuff in inches. And then I can switch to, mine was in metric, but it comes in as metric, but if you switch to English, then you get a feet per second wind speed. There may be somewhere, I don't think there's anywhere that you can switch to miles per hour, unfortunately. Because obviously that's your typical, yeah, I can't remember. It's like I said, this is a very basic program. Um, yeah. And then also I mentioned that if you just hold down and right click, you can rotate, but also you can rotate by this cube as well, if you want. Um, so obviously, an easier way is just to do feet per second to miles per hour, or or the opposite way. So if I want 10 miles an hour wind, that's basically like a 14.5 foot per second wind speed. So if I click on wind tunnel, this is where I can adjust the wind speed. So I can say 14.5 wind speed, and that shows you what the wind speed is. And this is, so I'm in the 2D one. So this plane I can kind of move kind of at any location of my building and see what the wind speed's doing. So you can kind of compare here. So this kind of like teal color is the 14.5 miles an hour. And then, as it hits the building and goes over it, you get a different kind of reading. The wind speed obviously increases because there's like a wind tunnel effect kind of created. You actually see it a lot on skyscrapers. The higher you go up on a skyscraper, the actual wind speed gets increases because of the tunnel effect that's created. So that's it in 2D. Obviously, there's things that you can do with this plane. You can turn to flow lines, so you can see actual lines going through the building and around the building. You can actually increase, the count of lines, and this was through settings. The speed of the lines, just so you can see them faster. And this is where you can start to see like the vortex being created by the wind shooting over your building. The size of those lines you can do, length, a whole bunch of different things to kind of look at them. This just kind of rotates this thing, so you can see like a top. It's kind of like a different direction. So like this one, so this is in 2D. So this side one was the plane is like this, and then if I go to top, the plane is vertical. So the plane for some reason, and this is what I mean by this is a basic program where I kind of do it and the plane disappeared on me. So it's sometimes a pain to actually see. But if I switch back to plane, I get that back. It's supposed to show up there. So, but you can see, I switched to the top. So side, it lets me remove, horizontally across my building. And then if I switch to the top, I can go up and down and see what it is kind of doing around my building. as it hits, a facade and what it's doing around it. And then you can look at, there's a whole bunch of different things that you can play around with to see on here. And anything that you want to, kind of read. Um, if you look on this, you can save an image, you can save a video, so you can take a video of it to use for like a presentation. Let me actually go back to side plane. Turn this off. So that's it in 2D. Sometimes 2D, the 2D wind analysis is a little bit easier to read than what the 3D one will be, which I'm going to show now. So if I switch over to 3D, obviously the plane is kind of like the same thing in 3D. But what really changes is when you switch to flow lines. So now instead of the flow lines just being on a plane, it's flow lines everywhere, and you can actually display what the surface pressure on your buildings are. So this tab, it's showing surface pressure, which is all this stuff. So obviously, sometimes the wind, the vortex, it creates a negative pressure. So that's what you would see in the little brackets, and you can see the pressure, what it is there. But you can turn surface pressure off so you don't see it. And then there's when you switch to flow lines in 3D, you can go from like lines to tubes to smoke to particles. If you go back to lines, and then it's the same settings. And this box actually controls the width of the 3D and where the lines actually flow. So you can see, like, I can just do that area and they just flow there, or I can pull it out and do that, and I can go up and down. Obviously, the bigger the file you have, the slower this runs. Obviously, the other thing, and the same thing that I did in 2D, I can increase the count, length, and anything like that. However you want to do it. Obviously this one you're not going to see much because it's so fast. Uh, so that's why sometimes you kind of got to use this and um, pull back, and then you can start to see a little thing, or just not make the count so big or so fast, and you can start to see some things. Unfortunately, since this is such a basic kind of wind analysis, and we've tried this out last semester. If you kind of create, and this was when we got later on in like the schematic design, we've tried to have like open windows and stuff to see if the smoke, the lines would pass through them, but it doesn't really do a great job at that. And that's because this is a very basic version, as I mentioned. Um, I'm going to exit out of this, and let me delete that. It actually used to come when you download Flow Design. It used to come within Revit. It used to be a part of Revit, so it would be kind of like an add-in with the analyze stuff. It would be a part of this. There would be like another tab that you could do Flow Design. But unfortunately, they haven't made it compatible with 2016. It does it with 2015, but not 2016. So hopefully they kind of do that soon and fix it so it's within. But you can see that was just these two buildings. But it's always a better idea to actually export the site with it. So this is where you would actually export everything. So that's why I turned everything on. Again, if you've done the process that I showed you of linking the site, you want to link this. You want to have the file be a linked file. You want to make sure that you have this checked as linked. I don't, so I'm just going to export it. And say concept with site. And a lot of times when you include the site, that's where it may come in sideways, as I explained. So let me open Flow Design, import with site, and it came in. Well, it won't bring in the topo service, unfortunately, but at least it does bring in the buildings, so you can kind of test the site with the buildings. But you can see it goes slower but that's it for this video, and hopefully that kind of helps you with the wind.